All right, let's talk about something I'm sure a lot of you have felt. You're just drowning in a sea of services, right? You've got backends and endpoints everywhere. Well, you're in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we're going to demystify Azure API Management, a tool that's really designed to bring some serious order to the beautiful, but yeah, sometimes maddening chaos of our modern digital world.
I mean, it's not a surprise to anyone, right? APIs are just everywhere. They are the digital glue holding everything together. It's how our services talk to each other, and it doesn't matter if they're in the cloud, on-prem, or from some third-party partner. They are, quite simply, the building blocks of everything we're creating today.
But that's where the problem starts, isn't it? As these things multiply, you get dozens, maybe hundreds of these APIs, and things just get complicated and fast. So the big question is, how on earth do you manage all that chaos? How do you keep any kind of control?
And I bet these challenges look pretty familiar. You've got developers who can't find the APIs they need. You're scratching your head trying to figure out how to secure all of them in a consistent way. You've got to protect your back-end services so they don't get totally overwhelmed. You need some governance, some control, and you need to actually see who's using what. And, oh man, don't even get me started on trying to juggle all the different authentication methods. It's a lot.
So how do we fix this? How do we tackle this mess? Well, the solution from an architectural standpoint is actually surprisingly elegant. It really all comes down to creating one single powerful abstraction layer, a central point of contact that sits between everyone using your APIs and all the services providing them.
And that is exactly what Azure API Management is. Think of it like a really sophisticated, intelligent front door for all of your APIs. Instead of your clients having to knock on 100 different doors, they all just go through one single managed entry point. And as we're about to see, that one simple change, it completely changes the game. Okay, so at the very heart of this service is something called the API Gateway. This is where all the action happens. And look, it's not just some simple pass-through. No way. It's an intelligent proxy that gets to inspect and act on every single call that comes through.
So let's actually follow the journey of a single API call, step by step. First, a client sends a request, but not directly to your backend. It hits the gateway. Step 2, the gateway kicks in and applies what we call inbound policies. You know, stuff like checking permissions or rate limiting. Then, step 3, it forwards that request to the correct backend. The backend does its thing, sends a response back to the gateway. And that brings us to steps 4 and 5. Now the gateway applies outbound policies. Maybe it transforms the data or caches the result. And finally, step 6, that polished final response goes back to the original client. You see, this interception, this ability to act in the middle, that is the key to everything.
Now you might be thinking, and it's a great question, wait a minute, if I'm putting everything through one gateway, isn't that a huge single point of failure? Totally valid concern, but Azure has this covered in a few ways. You could add more scale units to handle more traffic. You can use availability zones to survive an entire data center failure. And if you're on the premium tier, you can even deploy gateways in multiple regions all over the world. Azure's Traffic Manager then does this brilliant thing where it automatically routes your users to the gateway with the lowest latency, so you get both resiliency and incredible performance. Okay, we've mentioned policies a couple of times now, but let's be really clear about this. This is where the real magic of API management is. This is the programmable heart of the entire service. It's everything. You know, I love this quote from the source material because it just hits the nail on the head. It says, it's really policy that drives the magic of what Azure API Management can do. And that's 100% true. Policies are what take this thing from being just a simple proxy and turn it into this incredibly intelligent, adaptable tool. This is where the magic happens.
So what kind of magic are we talking about? Oh, a ton of stuff. Just imagine, you've got some old legacy backend that only understands API keys. No problem. A policy can translate modern OAuth tokens for it, completely on the fly. You can enforce super strict rate limits to protect your services. You can transform data. You can route traffic based on really complex logic. You can even do advanced things like semantic caching for AI to slash costs and boost speed. The flexibility here it's just phenomenal.
Okay, so that's the theory. Let's get practical. Let's see how these concepts actually come together to solve some real-world architectural challenges you probably face every day.
First up, how do you actually connect to your backend APIs? Well, you've got two main options here. On one hand, if your API is already public on the internet, it's pretty straightforward. But for the really sensitive stuff, your secure internal services, you can do something called VNet injection. This basically gives API management a private, secure tunnel right into your virtual network, which keeps those backends completely locked down and isolated from the public internet. Super powerful. And the flexibility doesn't even stop there. You can also choose where the gateway itself actually runs. By default, it's fully managed by Azure, easy peasy. But let's say your app and its API are both running on premises. Do you really want to send all that traffic up to the cloud and back down? Nope. You can deploy a self-hosted gateway right there with them. The data path never leaves your network, which is fantastic for both latency and security, but all the configuration and management, that's still handled centrally up in Azure. It's a great hybrid solution.
You know, as an organization starts to grow, this debate always comes up. How do we manage all of this stuff? You could go for the centralized model, where a single IT team controls everything. It's super secure, but man, is it slow. Or you could go siloed, where every team just gets their own instance and does their own thing. That's fast and agile, but it quickly becomes chaotic and really expensive. There has to be a middle ground, right? And that's where the federated model comes in.
And this is where a feature called Workspaces is an absolute game changer. It lets a central IT team set the overall guardrails, the governance rules, but then delegate the day-to-day management of specific APIs to the individual teams that actually own them. It truly gives you the best of both worlds, that centralized control you need with the developer agility you can't live without.
Okay, before we wrap this up, it is so important to see where API management fits into the bigger picture, because it plays a very specific but absolutely critical role in the whole API lifecycle.
This is a really key distinction to get your head around. Think of Azure API Center as your library or your catalog. It's a design time tool. Its job is to give you a complete inventory of every single API you own, no matter where it runs. Azure API Management, which is what we've been talking about, is the runtime engine. It's the gateway that's actually in the line of fire, handling the live traffic. See the difference? They're perfect partners, one for inventory and governance, the other for runtime execution and security.
So, after all of that, what's the big takeaway? What should you really remember? It all boils down to two fundamental things: gaining control and gaining insight.
So what do you really walk away with? Well, you get a single place to control all your security and policies. You get to seriously enhance your security posture while also giving your developers the agility they need to move fast. You get deep, actionable insights into how everything is being used, but maybe the most powerful benefit of all is future-proofing. By putting this abstraction layer in front of your backends, you create this stable front door that lets you innovate like crazy behind the scenes, and you never have to worry about breaking things for your clients. That is huge.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about for your own organization. As you continue to build and innovate, is your digital infrastructure being actively managed, or is it just growing? Because the difference between those two words, managed versus growing, that's what's going to define your ability to scale securely and efficiently long into the future. Thanks for tuning in.